change. So I am very pleased to be presenting on behalf of the CRF CEO, Isaac Anthony, and the Corporate Communications Manager, Elizabeth Emanuel, and I'm Gina Sanguinetti Phillips. And it's going to be a short presentation about a little bit about CRF and specifically about COAST, which is the product, the parametric insurance product that we have for the fisheries sector. And I'm not going to go through this slide at all. We all know the importance of the fisheries sector in the Caribbean. This was inserted just for completeness of the presentation. But if you don't mind, I'm going to go straight on to CRF. Some of you, or a lot of you, may be familiar with CRF, but just to remind you that CRF was initially established in 2007. It was prompted by Hurricane Ivan back in 2004. And the damage created in the region, and CARICOM heads of governments made a request to the World Bank for assistance to develop some kind of mechanism to help address these natural hazards. So CRF is the world's first multi-country, multi-peril risk pool based on parametric insurance, and it provides parametric catastrophe insurance for Caribbean and now Central American governments as well. So we provide services to 19 Caribbean governments, 3 Central American governments, and most recently 2 electric utility companies. And CRF was really designed to provide short-term liquidity for governments and policyholders to begin recovery efforts after a catastrophic event. So unlike traditional or indemnity insurance products, CRF's parametric insurance make payments based on the intensity of an event. And in CRF's case, hurricane wind speed and storm surge, earthquake intensity as measured by ground shaking, and the volume of rainfall for rainfall events. And those rainfall events can be within a tropical cyclone or at any other time throughout the year. And so the payments are based on the intensity of the event and the amount of modeled loss, or the loss calculated in a pre-agreed model caused by those events. So this allows CRF to make payments very quickly after an event, and in CRF's case, within 14 days. So that's CRF's commitment to its policyholders. And currently, CRF offers 5 products: 1 for tropical cyclones, earthquakes, excess rainfall, and then the newest one for fisheries, the fisheries subsector, and for electric utilities. The electric utilities product covers transmission and distribution infrastructure specifically for electric utility companies, whereas the other 4 products are purchased by the government. So to date, CRF has made 60 payouts totaling $262 million to 16 member governments. And all payouts are made within 14 days of the event. And in many cases, based on requests from the government, CRF is able to provide a partial payment even more quickly than that, within 7 days. And approximately 3.5 million persons in the Caribbean and Central America have benefited from CRF payouts since 2007. And the graph shows you an example of how governments have used some of these payouts. As you'd imagine, the majority are used for immediate post-event activities like repairing roads and bridges, providing humanitarian assistance to affected persons, clearing debris, etc. But some amount, 14%, has been used to do long-term infrastructure work, for example, to improve the education buildings in Turks and Caicos Islands so that they're more resilient to future hurricanes and storms. Some payouts have been used specifically to help economic sectors such as agriculture and the tourism sector, for example. But I'd like to introduce COAST. So this is a sovereign product. It is purchased by governments, and it's specifically for the fisheries industry. And so the key thing about the coast product is it includes a mechanism whereby the payout that a country may receive if the policy is triggered is automatically disseminated to the beneficiaries within the fisheries sector. And this is not only the fisher folk going out to sea, but also other persons such as boat captains, boat boys, fish vendors, and so on. And so the Coast Insurance Initiative is actually more than just selling insurance, but it promotes a culture of building back better to enhance coastal community resilience. And we're pleased to be part of this partnership with the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism, who are an important part of this initiative and receiving funding and so on by the US State Department and the World Bank. And currently it's in 2 countries, Grenada and St. Lucia, and we're actively working with other countries to roll it out throughout the Caribbean. So the coast product has 2 components. One is provides cover for losses due to unusually bad weather conditions, high waves and or rainfall specifically. And so this part acts kind of like business interruption insurance when fisherfolk are prevented from going out to sea due to adverse weather. And then the second component is based on losses due to tropical cyclones because of high wind and storm surge, and that's losses specifically to the fisheries related infrastructure. And as I mentioned earlier, if a country's policy is triggered, the payout is automatically disseminated to all persons in the fisheries industry database maintained by the country. So these are the 2 components. It's self-explanatory. So the hazards that contribute or that would trigger the policy are indicated on the right. So for the adverse weather component, it looks at the wave height and heavy rainfall, and when it reaches a certain level throughout over the course of a year or throughout within the year, it's possible that the policy would be triggered. The policy could also be triggered if a tropical cyclone occurs and causes damages to fisheries industry infrastructure above the threshold identified in the policy, and those are based on wind speed and storm surge. So there are a number of unique aspects of coast, and one is that issue of disseminating the payouts directly to the beneficiaries. And so this requires that the governments create and maintain an up-to-date list of the beneficiaries in the fisheries industry in their country. So this is an important first step before countries could opt to purchase a coast policy. And by including a wide range of beneficiaries, it does focus a lot on women. In a lot of countries, women are highly represented among fish vendors and market vendors, for example. And so it really aims to be inclusive in that regard. And it allows, by having this mechanism to provide the payouts to the beneficiaries, it includes a ready-made mechanism to track the payment of those funds and how they're used. And so the next step, as I mentioned, is to go to other countries. We've started with others and CRFM itself. I mean, there are partners and they're involved in collecting the data or assisting the governments in collecting data to create these inventories, not just of the infrastructure and the vessels, but also the persons involved or included in the fisheries industry. And so for the new countries coming up, CRIF works collaboratively with CRFM and the governments to get them ready to accept or to be ready to purchase the coast policy. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions. There is a publication about the coast product available on the CRIF website, where please encourage you to visit the website to do that.
Okay, thank you so much. We certainly will be visiting that website, a very interesting presentation. All right, so I'll allow for 2 quick questions from Sandra Grant and Mr. Horsford, and ask that everyone else place their questions in the chat. Go ahead, Ms. Grant.
Hi, good morning. Question. Any payouts on the coast as yet?
Not to date.
Okay. And why do you think why not? Is there a problem with the conditions of payout, or just a thought?
No, we have not encountered any issues of that nature. It's just that countries have been, I'm going to use the word, fortunate enough that they have not, the 2 countries, as I mentioned, it's only 2 countries who have the policies, that they have not been affected by weather events of such strength that it would trigger their coast policy. The list of total payouts of CRF is listed on the CRF website, so I invite you to look at those as well. And you can see, you know, where countries have received payouts under their other policies as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Horsford?
Just to say, I'm a proponent for the CRF coast. I've been pushing it for years, and I hope all the member states get on board, because to actually have this as a sustainable system, we need to spread the risk across the Caribbean and further afield, our colleagues in Latin America. We have learned our lessons from our OECS fishing vessel insurance scheme, which went under because of not spreading the risk.
Thank you, Mr. Horsford.
And I too agree, and I will say that the email address should be taken down, and we should reach out respective nations. Thank you so much.
And sorry, if I just make one quick last comment, just that the conditions, the terms of the policies are discussed with the countries, you know, so it is a back and forth, so they can select the levels of, you know, where the payouts are triggered and so on. That's within the country's decision.
Okay, so customized for each nation. Wonderful. Thank you so much.